All right, so in reality, the panel members, they've done an excellent job at explaining the statistics, the numbers, the effects of the drugs in our community. So I thought with the little bit of time we have left that I would use a different pitch. I would give you a perspective from my view, what's it like, and it's a view that oftentimes family members, moms, dads, brothers and sisters also experience sadly. My scenario is it's 1 a.m. My phone rings. It's a dispatcher. If it's in the city of Huntsville, it'll be Huntsville Police. In the county, it'll be the Sheriff's Office, Madison Police, or if it's on the Arsenal, it'll be a military CID. They notify me that a death has occurred, and they've requested my services to come investigate the death to determine a cause and manner. Has foul play occurred? How long has this person been deceased? So I respond out. I go to a street in Huntsville, and I arrive. There's a homicide detective there. He meets me at the door, and he reports to me all of his findings, everything that he's gathered so far that they know. It's a young man. He's in his 20s. His mother woke up to find him, and he was in the bathroom. There's a syringe there. There's a belt around his arm. She pulled him down to the ground, began CPR, notified emergency services. They responded, administered Narcan, but it was no avail. His life had come to an end that night. I go in, I talk with the crime scene investigators who's responsible for photographing the scene, documenting everything as it is until I arrive. I talk with them, make sure all the photos are taken, everything's documented properly, and then I begin processing the body and the evidence right there around. I observe the syringe. I see that the liquid in it is very little what's left. The needle's bent at the tip. There's a little bit of blood on it. The belt's still firmly around the arm. I observe the vessels that's been risen for the occasion that night. I also notice that the other vessels in the arm is now scarred over time, where they've been used repeatedly. And it's something that's went on for years, that he's battled the addiction, that he's trying to overcome it. And this night, he went as far as he could go, sadly. And it's something that we think never happens to us or somebody in our family, but in reality, it does. We never know when. The users, they have no idea how strong the potency of the drug is that they're using on the street. If they did, a lot of them would cut back or they would use less. But you have no idea how hot that mix is, especially when you start using fentanyl. And a lot of times they may think it's just heroin, or maybe they're just using Roxy's. But in this case, it was carfentanil. It was a drug that they could have administered multiple doses of the Narcan, and it would not be able to reverse it in this instance by the time they arrived. It's a very powerful drug, and it binds a lot tighter to our opioid receptors than fentanyl alone. So it requires more and more prompter administration to reverse opioid overdose. In that night, it changed a lot of lives. It changed her life forever. His sisters, his dads, his cousins, his friends at school, people that he grew up with, will always have their life altered because of that one event. And it's something that I can go in, I examine the body, I see the factors what we see for opioid overdose. So for example, we see pulmonary edema. The lungs are heavily congested. The scene findings, we still see some of the powder there, and it tested positive for the fentanyl, and later sent off and broke it down to tell exactly it was a carfentanil. At autopsy, we just see a few findings, typically with overdoses associated with opioids, such as cerebral edema, the brain swelling, the lungs congested, the chambers of the heart be dilated, but there's so many factors that we see that with a lot of different stuff. So we have to have toxicology. We draw the blood samples, we send them to our state labs, and even though we know what we have, in the field of forensic science, we have to prove it. We have to know for certain. And so we have to wait 4 months. And though we know what it is that took the young man's life, we have to be able to say for certain to prove it. And while that death certificate sits there and it sits pending for 4 months, it's absolutely painstaking to that family to wait. And it's a waiting game. And once it comes back, we can look at the levels and we can explain everything that we see. But the saddest part is that though I can answer the questions, how long he's been deceased, what exactly caused death in this case, how it affected the body to result in what we see here this day, I cannot give back time that they would love to have with him and all of his friends and everybody that ever knew him that will forever be changed. So I want to put in perspective that that scenario right there I gave you happens once every 5 days in our county. Last year, once every 5 days. In 2016, it happened once every 6, and in 2015, it just happened once a week. So it definitely is a problem that takes a lot of lives. And oftentimes, it's just people that work in the community or family members or close friends that really realize how big of a deal it is. So with that being said, I want to say that if you have anybody that has a problem, do everything you can to help them. If you get one more day to spend with them, it's well worth it. And like they mentioned, if you can just change one person's life, it affects everybody. Thank you.